Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. You can check out my work at brianfunk.com. I have lots of Ableton Live Packs, tutorials, all kinds of good stuff that I think will help you with your music production. Today continues a set of episodes I'm releasing about some episodes I learned during Jamuary 2021. In case you're not familiar with Jamuary, it's a daily challenge during the month of January to create a new piece of music every day and share it online. It doesn't have to be great, it just has to be you showing up and trying to make some music. I've managed to do it every day except the last day, which is today, so I'm going to have to get to that soon. But I want to share some short episodes on some things I've learned. The last episode of the podcast was the most profound lesson I think I've learned. And today I want to talk about inspiration. Creativity has been romanticized into this sort of like magical thing that happens. People are struck by lightning and they receive some divine intervention and they're inspired and they're breathing life into new art. And apparently the artist is some kind of magical conduit for that force to strike. I don't know what the exact odds of you getting struck by lightning are, but I have never been struck by lightning, thankfully, and I understand it's a pretty rare occurrence. So if I'm going to wait until lightning strikes, like inspiration, that seems like a bad idea. Inspiration is rare, or at least to be suddenly inspired is kind of rare. And I often talk about what to do to make yourself inspired. You might check out episode 58 of the podcast. It's called Don't Wait for Inspiration, or Don't Wait to Get Struck by Lightning, Hunt. Go find inspiration. That's really how you find it most of the time. You sit down, you do your work, and after a while something inspires you, and then you go. Now, occasionally, on the rare occasion where you're kind of going about your daily business and you feel inspired, this is an important moment, and consider it a gift. And you can think of it like lightning striking you or some magical force that you are now somehow tuned into. Treat it that preciously. You got to capture that moment by any means necessary. And I love this metaphor. Inspiration is drinking water from your hands. So imagine you are inspired. It's like suddenly you have your two hands cupped together, filled with some water. You can't really hold that in your hands for too long. It quickly seeps through your fingers and suddenly it's gone. You have to drink it immediately. So that means you have to sort of honor this as soon as it happens. Neil Young, one of my favorite artists, has been known to completely drop whatever he is doing the moment he gets inspired and goes and writes his songs out. And I guess if you're Neil Young, and you're at the family dinner and you get inspired, you can just say, well, I got to go. I'm Neil Young and I got an idea, and people will respect that. Maybe we're not at that level where we can kind of have others respect our art in that way. But on the other hand, maybe that's why Neil Young is who he is because he's honored that. I'm willing to bet it wasn't something he developed after he became successful. It's probably the reason why he's successful. Now, luckily for us, we don't have to necessarily disrupt our lives quite as drastically as maybe Neil Young had to back in the day when he didn't have a cell phone in his pocket. We can capture this by any means necessary. So that means take out your phone and record a voice memo. Excuse yourself, go to the bathroom. You don't even have to explain it. Probably if you waste time explaining it, you'll lose the idea anyway. Don't worry about it. Just capture that idea. Write it down if you can. Have something that you can record your idea, whether it's with a pen and paper or whether it's some kind of... Your phone is the obvious example to me because most people have a phone on them at all times. They say most adults don't have their phone out of reach from their body at all during a 24-hour day period. So at any point, it's either in your pocket or right next to you. So use that. Turn the thing on, record a voice memo, even if it's just humming, even if it's speaking out the lyrics, whatever it is. You can then have that preserved at least. And if you have the option, of course, Get down to your recording space and start working on it. Take out your instrument and start going. Don't waste time. That water is slipping through your fingers. The music from the beginning of this episode was done this way. I had that little kind of lead melody going on in my head, so I ran down to my studio and started recording as soon as I could and just figured out what it was and captured it. And I didn't finish this song necessarily, but I got the idea down. I got a good sketch, and whether it becomes a song that has lyrics or something full fleshed out or even some sort of transitional thing or another section to another song or even just nothing, at least I got the idea. It's there. And now the rest is up to me to work on. If you are stuck with the voice memo thing, no problem. Just hum it out. You can always convert that audio to MIDI if you use Ableton Live. You can later on transcribe it. And something I've been having fun during Jamuary is to build on top of those kind of cheap lo-fi recordings. So there have been a number of tracks during the month that I started off with voice memos, and I just threw the voice memo inside of Live and just started layering on top of it. And a lot of times it created a pretty interesting effect. You had this sort of different quality recording in there mixed in with all the other stuff. And I often find that using sometimes a cheaper microphone sounds good when you're using more high quality stuff. It's just like a little variety and it gives it its own place in the mix. So there's no reason to discount something because it's a cheap recording. And at the end, you could always just mute it anyway, and then you don't have to deal with it. But the lesson here is when you get struck by lightning, by inspiration, you have to go for it. Treat it like that precious gift it is. And I think what starts happening, as I've noticed over the last few days and weeks of January, is you are more tuned into those moments and you almost like you attract it or you're just aware, you're paying more attention. Since I'm making a track every day, right? I have to think of what I'm going to do. So kind of throughout the day, there's this low level hum or anxiety inside of me thinking like, what are you going to do today, man? What are you going to come up with? And if it comes to you, you got to grab it. You got to go for it. So don't think that you're going to be able to keep this in your head. You're not. You're not going to remember that cool lyric. You're not going to remember that interesting thing somebody said that you think would fit as like a title of a song or an album. I promise you, you will forget this stuff. If you're lying in bed in the middle of the night and an idea comes to you, you got to get it down. You will definitely not remember that. All you'll remember, if you're lucky, is that you had a beautiful idea and now it's gone. Paul McCartney famously wrote Yesterday this way. He woke up in the morning, he had the melody in his head, and he went right to work at the piano. And he didn't even have lyrics yet. He didn't have Yesterday, so he started saying scrambled eggs. This is like a story I've heard him tell many times, that he just threw these lyrics down. It didn't matter what he was saying because he had this cool melody, and he captured it. And then he was able to work on it and put it together. He didn't try to remember it. He didn't, just keep it in the back of his mind. He was struck by inspiration in the middle of the night. He woke up in the morning with this tune in his head and he had to get it then. You know how fast your dreams fade away at night, right? Or in the morning after you wake up. Good way to remember your dreams is to write them down. Same thing with your ideas. So that is just a little food for thought for you. If you get inspired, if you're walking around, you're in the supermarket and you hear a little song on the Muzak playing overhead and it just makes you think, don't assume you're going to remember that. Get it down somehow. If that means pulling your cart to the side somewhere where no one is and just kind of humming into your phone, that's fine. Believe me, no one's paying attention to you. No one cares. The inspiration is much more important. It is a gift and it's rare. It is like being struck by lightning. So don't rely on your inspiration, but if it strikes, you have to be there to receive it or else it will be gone. Thanks a lot for listening and good luck with your music.